G'day everyone, goodness gracious me. Dazzling got a lot of sun over the weekend, made some poor choices, but I'll tell you what's not a bad choice, and that is clicking that subscribe button, getting on board not only the SuperCoach content, but the non-SuperCoach content as well. Fingers crossed there is going to be more stuff coming with going back to work and committing to doing the SuperCoach previews as well. The non-SuperCoach stuff is on the back burner in terms of getting quantity out, but fingers crossed you guys are enjoying the quality of both as well. Today we're talking about the Hawks, my Hawks. Now, the Hawks are one of the most intriguing draft teams in my opinion, and I can't wait to get stuck into it when we do the draft dissections. They will be coming shortly. But for Classic, there's actually not that lot of relevance with the Hawks, which is a weird thing to say considering during probably 2010 to about 2018, the Hawks had plenty of good options. But there is a lot of wait and see about the Hawks, so let's get stuck into it with the defense. And this is what I mean by there's no outstanding choice. I actually don't have a best pick or a cash cow here. I've actually got 3 guys on the watch list and 1 no chance. So I'm actually going to start with the no chance, mixing it up a little bit here. And my no chance is Jarman Impey. Now, I don't think there is a Hawks fan that loves Jars more than me. I'm sure there would be Hawks fans in the comments going, I probably do, Daz. And good luck to you. We all love Jars. It's fine. He's not going to be a viable option in SuperCoach because I personally think that Jars would be best served on a half-forward flank. Rotate Chad Wingard through the midfield a bit more. That's how I would use Jars, but the fact that he's a defender, and even if he does go back to the defense, the Hawks defense already is fine, and the Hawks defense was strong when he wasn't there, which sounds really harsh, but where is he going to play? If you're not 100% sure where his best spot is going to be and how he's going to score his best, how can you spend that $400,000 on him? I simply don't think you can. I love Jars. Yet again, one of my favourite players ends up in the no chance section. Probably says something about me there, but I can't do it, Jars, and I love you, mate. But the 3 guys that I want to talk about that are on the watch list, and they're on the watch list actually for the same reason. They're coming back from injury, and I have no idea how they're going to go. And they're all wait and sees. And you guys will know who these 3 are, but that's James Sicily, Changkuoth Jiath, and Will Day. Now, let's start with Sis. Has the highest ceiling of these 3 guys, in my opinion. He can be an All-Australian halfback flanker or a back pocket, because who knows what All-Australian selectors are thinking. But he can be an All-Australian for a few years there. He's got that power. He's got great overhead hands. He kicks the footy like it's an arrow. The thump off his boot, if you've ever actually heard it, is extraordinary. It's like a drum. It's unbelievable. And he's a beautiful kick. I think James Sicily's kick is what Jack Lukosius's kicking needs to be. I think that's what Jack's ceiling can be. He can be a kick like James Sicily. The difference is I don't think Sis bites off more than he can chew. And it's such a SuperCoach friendly game. But the temptation to maybe play him forward, because the Hawks are going to need Kyle Hartigan to lock down the key backs. You've also got Sam Frost down there. Denver Granger Barris is coming through. So a watch list. Is Sis going to be okay? And then where does he play? Let's move on to CJ, Changkuoth Jiath. One of the better SuperCoach stories, and in my opinion, one of the better Hawthorn stories in 2021. He exploded. I was a doubter. Okay, I wasn't ready to lop him off the list or anything like that, but I wasn't convinced of him being a gun. Needed to see more. He was kind of like a non-SuperCoach watch list player as a Hawthorn fan last year. And someone must have told him that because he's given me the finger and gone, get Nick Daz, I'm going to show you. And he did it absolutely fantastically. He is the prototype halfback flanker that the Hawks need. Sam Mitchell loves pace. Loves it. If you watched a Box Hill game, I was lucky to watch a few. They were the get and go VFL team. If the AFL team needs to be the same, it needs to be him driving it. I actually think that he might score the best out of these 3 guys if they all play 22 games, because he is going to be that get-and-go kind of player. And we end with Will Day, who oozes class. He could play half-back, a wing. I would love to see him in the midfield. I really would. There is a quicker and leaner Paddy Cripps type about him. He's got the size. He doesn't quite have the strength yet, so I'm not suggesting he become a midfielder this year. But there's no real reason why he can't use the talents he's already got and absolutely dominating that midfield, along with a couple of rookies that we are going to talk about in the next few years in a post-Tom Mitchell and Jaeger O'Meara world. Best pick for Hawthorn in the midfield is Tom Mitchell, for reasons of the fact the man just finds the footy, and he's going to be the one that is not going to suffer from not knowing what Sam Mitchell is going to do, because, and I mean this in the nicest way, the man's won a Brownlow and he's won 3 best and fairest at the Hawks. Okay, so this isn't me having a dig, but he can't play anywhere else. You think of Jimmy Worpel's tried as a tagger, tried at a half-forward flank with disastrous results, but he has done it. Jaeger did go forward at times. He'd spent more time forward last year than he had at any other point in his career. Tommy can't do that. So if you are nervous about what Sam is going to do with Hawthorn players, Tommy is as safe as it can get. And with the numbers that he's had over the last, since he got to Hawthorn basically in 2018, he is a safe pick. And I actually think he's going to be a pod. I kind of hope his price drops a touch in the early bit of the season as the Hawks figure out their midfield mix, because you're going to be able to get him cheaply, and we did that a bit last year as well. But there's no reason why starting with him wouldn't be a bad plan, although you could argue there are better choices around his price or maybe a bit more expensive, but come on, it's Tom Mitchell. The watch list for my midfield is James Worpel. He has got breakout written all over him, which is weird because he's already won a best and fairest, but he's midfield only, which isn't great. Not really sure what role he's going to have. I think Sam's going to unleash him this year, which I think is going to be awesome to watch, so I'm not going to put that emotional investment in my SuperCoach team, but if he comes out and churns out, hundreds early, and you got guys like Caleb Sarong and Andy McGrath who are around that price tag that are going to be popular, then he might be worth having a go in, but my watch list is probably from round 1 onwards, not to start him in round 1. And my no chance for the midfield is Jaeger O'Meara. I don't think his body's been 100% since he walked into Waverley. There's no inside word on that or anything. And you can't blame him. The injuries have been brutal, so that's not me going, he hasn't done enough or any of that nonsense. I just don't think he's properly fit. And he's not classic relevant anyway. I struggle to think he's draft relevant as well, but maybe I'll bring that up with Smithy in the draft dissection. But I'm going nowhere near Jaeger. I don't think you will either. And for the cash cow, I know what you're all thinking. All right, Daz is going to talk up Josh Ward. No, I'm actually going to talk up Connor MacDonald here. Pick 23, or I ended up going at 25 because of the weird father-son and academy and all that stuff. But every Hawthorn fan was convinced we were going to take Tyler Sonsie, who had been at Box Hill, and Sam looked at it, had Sonsie under his nose, and went, no, we're going to take Connor. So clearly they see a lot in this kid. If you take Nick Dacos out of the equation because he was a genuine freak in the NAB League, Josh Ward and Connor MacDonald were 2nd and 3rd for SuperCoach average in the NAB League last year. I love Joshy Ward. I think he's going to be a gun, but everyone watching this already knows about Joshy Ward, and I think half of you probably have him in your team, but I'm telling you, at Connor's price, I think he's a better cash cow option. You can use the 80k you've got in other places. Wouldn't be surprised to see them both this year, but for all of the Josh Ward hype that's going around that's justified, there is not enough Connor MacDonald love going around, so I thought I'd give it here. The ruck situation at the Hawks is an interesting one because Ben McAvoy has no SuperCoach relevance at all, so it's all down to Ned Reeves v Max Lynch, and a lot of people are going, this is that Reeves has had some senior experience, let's get him. I'm saying no. I'm saying Max Lynch is the better option. Now, if you're going to go with such a cheap ruckman, you're going to go with Braden Preuss. So I know I'm not going to change any of your minds. And in draft, if you draft Reeves, you need to draft Lynch as well. If you've got back-to-back picks, if you're on that snake there, and you're in the late bit of the draft, maybe you've already got a good ruckman and you need a backup, take Reeves and take Lynch consecutively. You can't go wrong. But round 1, as someone that hasn't seen a lick of Hawthorn training, and I'm only going off my own guesswork here, I think we're going to play Lynch. If we had that much faith in Reeves, we wouldn't have gone and got Lynch, in my opinion. You got to look at why these decisions are getting made. So, if I'm being honest, I think Lynch starts, and I like Max Lynch. I think he keeps Ned Reeves out, unless he gets injured, and knock on wood that he doesn't. But, hey, pod, massive pod. Probably too big of a pod to start, but that's what I think the Hawthorn ruck situation is going to be. And Hawthorn don't have a best option for the forward line. Controversial opinion, I know, but none of them stand out. And if you're thinking, Daz, there is a 500 grand player who could be a premium. And yes, I agree. Chad Wingard can be a premium, but he's on my watch list because this is a guy that's finished top 3 in Hawthorn's best and fairest 2 years in a row. And that's probably his ceiling in SuperCoach now, because we kept Mitchell, we kept O'Meara. His role isn't going to change that much. If O'Meara and Mitchell weren't there, if one of them was gone, I think Wingard becomes an 80-20 midfielder, and he'd actually be a lock at that price. But how much is it really going to change? Is he really going to grow that average by 10 to 15 points and become, a top 3, top 4 forward? I don't think he is, so I want to see what he does in the Marsh Community Series and go from there. My no chance for the forward line is everyone else, basically, so I don't have a no chance here. No one's picking a Hawthorn forward other than Chad, I don't think. But I do have 2 cash cows that I want to talk about. One of them, rookie, and that's Sam Butler, who I think we're going to see. I don't think Tyler Brockman has nailed down a forward pocket spot. And I think we've got Wingard, Dylan Moore, Luke Bruce, and I think there is another small forward spot there. We could be looking at a Seamus Mitchell, potentially. I love Butler. He is so crafty around the goals. The more senior experience he gets, the quicker we can get him rotating into some centre bounces as well. But let's talk about the experienced cash cow that we need to talk about. And that's Jack Gunston. His average is 22. He's going to absolutely smash that out of the park. Now, how much cash is he going to make you? Hard to say at this point, but he is fresh and primed to go. Gunners is a star. He's a best and fairest winner and probably the most underrated Hawk of the last 10 years. If you need a pod cash cow who is best 22, hard to go past Gunners. For Daz's final word, I actually don't have any Hawks in my team right now, which is, I think that's the first team we've gone through that I've got 0. Definitely keeping close eyes on Will Day and Jack Gunston. I don't have Mitchell in my midfield. He's probably a plan for round 6, 8, 10, whatever it may become. And from there, and the rest I'm looking at draft with an eye on Chad Wingard as well. How do you think the Hawks are going to go this year, guys? How many Hawks are you considering for your Supercoach team? I know they're not the most relevant team, but definitely a few players to keep an eye out for. I hope you are well. I hope you had a better weekend than me. I hope you made smarter choices than I did. We've got Melbourne and North Melbourne coming this week, and we will go from there. Be safe, my friends. Be well. Goodbye.